And thank you for being with us here this evening from all over the country and the world. At this unprecedented time, when we are all facing what is quite unthinkable and not maybe what we imagined we would face in our lifetime. So we're going to begin. I'm going to invite Michelle to come into the space, and she's just going to guide us all, just take a moment to really come into our own sphere and our own field, so that we can really take each woman in from being rooted in our own body. So thank you. I'll pass Michelle over.
Hello everybody. Thanks Isabella, that was absolutely stunning. Thank you for softening us all into our bodies and our souls, because at the end of the day we know that this is what we're fighting for ultimately, is our spirit, our creativity and the love of humanity and humanity itself. So that's why Isabella's really been holding this vision, and we've been over these years hoping, longing, yearning for this day to come where incredibly brave and courageous women and men and beings come together and really start to wake up to what is really happening on all levels of our being now. So on that level, on that note, I just want to call us to come deeper into ourselves so that we can connect in to ourselves personally, but then with each other, so that we really hold this feeling of sovereignty in ourselves, so we're not merging energetically. It's like the hive mind that is very much promoted in group meditations has actually been hijacked on some levels, so that we're actually merging, and with the artificial intelligence that's happening, we want to really reclaim our own thoughts, our own emotions, our own sense of self and our boundaries whilst connecting with each other. So I'm going to invite us all now to just close our eyes, close the curtains on our stories now. I'll ask us to just sigh 3 times, to just allow our cells to release any energy that is no longer serving us. Releasing it down into the earth, down into the mother. South American indigenous people, they hold very dear that we release our hucha. This is our responsibility, that we have this trap door, the door that releases between our legs, and everything that we no longer need, we release into the earth. And the mother, she eats it. She eats it like the trees drink in our carbon dioxide. This is two-way energy field that it's our responsibility to just keep releasing this now, because we're holding so much fear and contraction in our body. So as we go in deeper now, just asking that we see this energy, we're just releasing into the earth. With each breath we release out. And as we breathe in 100% pure source energy, nothing less. Breathing into our bellies, expanding, breathing in this energy, filling every cell inside of ourselves, and every cell and atom outside of ourselves. Everything igniting. We're calling 100% pure source energy now. Spirit from north, south, east and west. Igniting deeply inside every cell of our being. And feeling this glow in our bellies now, as our lungs breathe these embers awake. And this light, this glow in our bellies starts to expand. Our intention, our breath, expanding this light with every breath and every release. It's expanding bigger and bigger and fuller and fuller. We are igniting this energy field, this sphere of intention, of beauty field, of power and strength that is going to hold us and our vulnerability and softness that we need to keep so safe now as we walk these paths and absorb this information. Seeing our threads moving down into the earth, down into the mother, as we release everything we no longer need, like black masses, down into the earth as her food, anchoring ourselves deeply in the belly. Thank you for holding us now. And seeing us all like trees rooted on this earth, rooted on her, and drinking deeply from our own well. Imagining everybody on this earth awakening to the fact that we all have our own well of energy that we don't need to take, push and pull with each other. And seeing that now, seeing us all claiming our own sovereignty, creating our own light, but being responsible for releasing this heavy energy that we really need to keep releasing now as we process this shadow. Start to breathe in from the bones, the crystalline bones of the mother, the grandmothers holding us now. Breathing in, seeing and feeling and sensing. Very soft and yet powerful spiraling movement coming up, moving us. Rising up around us. Holding us and receiving the energies of cosmic Father as well. Stars releasing, cascading, releasing and clearing everything we don't need. Receiving this inspirational energy, divine intelligence, whisperings and wind, and seeing, feeling, sensing that this masculine, feminine energies now blending together like a lava lamp, dancing very softly, caressing, rebalancing within us. Settling down into our muscles, deeper down into our bones, knowing that our beauty, our innocent self, is deeply held within our heart. And we're keeping this treasured part of ourselves safe now. It's so important that this part of us, this truth, this absolute exquisite gem is held safe as we navigate these times and these waters. So seeing ourselves now settled, strong, rooted and powerful. And more that we come together like this, remembering our natural, simple being, our indigenous, simple songs, simple movements as men and women, as allies, holding our own space. Thank you all for being here, for courage.
Thank you, Michelle. So here at Ava, we seek to shine a light, shine all our lights on the systemic deceit at the heart of life at this time, and to hold sacred our life, our earth, and our right to life. This evening, this cry of the mothers is a moment in time to bring clear seeing and honouring to this moment that we are living through, when there is, it's like a torrential river that is flowing over, seeking every nook and cranny to contain, to infiltrate our lives and our children's lives, through education, through health. And the question is, will we stand? Will we say no? We're here today because I believe most of us are clear in our no. and our clarity of what we hold sacred, that we hold life sacred. And at this time when there's a choice between life and death, that we're choosing life. We choose life for ourselves, we choose life for our children. I feel we have this responsibility at this time to hold life sacred. There are many that are being swept up and woven into a web that perhaps they don't understand. And so, yeah, so I feel this responsibility to hold sacred life strong, the memory of our deep, 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 deep connection to this earth and our ancestors and our lands and our prayers and our songs, and to hold that memory and teach that memory to our children, and to keep them connected and alive outside of the web of technology that is seeking to consume. And I was touched by a story I heard this week, and it was Clarissa and Colette Estes who was sharing the story, and she shared about a time when the Moors had overrun Spain, and the Spanish people were enchained, and they were lacking food and shelter. And it was a time of a very challenging time for their people. And that was the time when flamenco was birthed in Spain. The music and the dance and the attitude, which is a fierce, fierce protection. It's like a kind of absolutely, this is who we are, this is our life, and we will not forget who we are. And yeah, and I felt that just really resonated with what I feel our responsibility is, and what I see in the women that I have gathered here tonight, women that are really holding that fierce protection of our earth and our land and our right to live simply on this earth. It's a new venture this evening because I'm weaving. Not just, often what we do is we gather in the woods or in a village hall, and we can decorate the space, and we can look into each other's eyes easily and touch each other, and snuggle up and laugh and listen, and often that's music and poetry. And tonight, what I'm grateful for, and what this platform really offers, is it allows voices from across our globe, women and mothers from different continents and cultures to join and to bring their light and their piece of the puzzle. And this cry of the mothers is this moment to bring a platform for these voices, these different voices. And some of these women have found themselves as deep researchers and experts in the field of what's happening in the world of technology and how that's affecting our life. But that's not who these women are. They've just happened upon that because they are women and they are mothers who care, and they have seen something that doesn't sing right. And so tonight I've brought together a mixture of women who have kind of delved deep into that web, and some who are holding the line of the memory, who we are, and this web, and this is the balance that we're weaving. So yeah, so if for those who haven't had the opportunity to look at Ava's recent edition. It's called the 2020 Time Capsule. And that's really because it took most of the year to create it, which was never the intention, but there was never a year like last year. And it really does offer a view into what is happening at this time on the earth. And it's not necessarily easy at all to digest if it's new information. And I'm completely aware of that. And for me, I seek to find a way to allow us to digest just enough to be aware, to be able to see clearly, and to be able to stand and act, so that we can act in protection of life for our children, that we can act while we still have the opportunity to do so. This evening, we have a number of women that have contributed to and written very extensively from their vantage, and given their gift through the papers. And tonight we have the opportunity to be together and to receive these women in their flesh and their embodiments, and drink that gift in another way. So yeah, I think from there we can begin. It's so beautiful to see all your names. There's so many familiar faces, but I can't see your faces right now, and I have to just let you in because you're out there. And yeah, so I'm going to start with inviting Alison McDowell, who is with us from Philadelphia in the US, and she's taken us out onto the streets to make her offering tonight. And Alison McDowell is a phenomenal woman, like quite a woman, really. I'm really awe-inspired and so grateful for the work that she shares. She's a very unique, as we all are, but unique blend of, for me, earth mother, simple mother, just humble, straightforward, hello, here we are, with this capacity to retain and decipher and research and communicate a very, very complex language around data, commodity and human capital bonds, and just what is happening from the corporations at this time. So I'm not going to say anything more, Alison, but thank you so much for who you are, and welcome. And you just unmute yourself, and we'll be able to hear you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I'm sitting out on Walnut Street in Philadelphia, so apologies if the sound quality isn't great. I'm on the public sidewalk, and Isabella, when you suggested that, invited me to be a part of this, I knew that I wanted to do something at the Wharton Business School. So it's kind of hard for me to sort of see if you can see this, but I'm under the Wharton Business School here on the campus of the University of Pennsylvania. And, you know, all around you can see there's these cameras, all sorts of surveillance cameras. So I'm sitting out here on the public sidewalk, sort of on the steps. It's snowy. And so I think when I'm done, I might hop off and then head back. But I want to show you, I don't know if you guys can see this here, this like in the ice. I don't know. It's like a face. It's this crazy face in the ice. Anyway, I'll take a picture of it, and it's like a cry, sort of like the scream, but in ice, and it's just sitting right here next to me. And so I'll just show you the reason for people who aren't familiar that I chose Wharton Business School is that this web that's being woven is being done so under the name of philanthropy and sort of social care. And it's anything but that. It's essentially this idea of putting the whole world under digital surveillance so that the most powerful and richest wealth hoarders in the world can continue to make more money and turn us into data and almost put us into a virtualized video game of augmented reality, which sounds crazy, but Wharton actually has a lot of connections to Stanford too, through their venture capital firm. A lot of alumni go to the Bay, Silicon Valley and the San Francisco area and develop sort of these technological systems. So what we're looking at is this crazy connections between finance and technology and video game worlds and alternate narratives and data and surveillance. But it comes out of my city. And so I feel sort of a profound obligation to let people know what's happening. And so I decided to come here. And before I started, I actually had some, it's windy. Like sage that I brought with me from this summer from Lakota lands that was given to me. And people said that, a friend, that we needed to pray and smudge and share this around. So I don't know that that's quite enough sage to take on Wharton Business School, but that was what I started with. And then the last couple of days, I've made these little poppets. So I have at least 4 mothers, and I sent out a tweet yesterday that it said, it was never meant to be temporary. And if you were deceived, process that and own it and grieve, and then let's start to fix things up. Let's start to do the repair. So there's like a little child down there in the acorn cap, and these moms, and it's in a Valentine's box. I just finished some chocolate. So there's sort of these mothers in love, and people kept saying, well, find the others to fix it. Who are the others? And I think we're the others, and we step out, and even if we can't be surrounded by hundreds of others in our community, we are connected energetically across all of these spaces. And these little women, they're actually, I sewed the bottom on, and inside of each of these is a piece of sage and shells from Cornwall and mica from my garden and broken pottery, and some have feathers. And so they're connecting the earth. These are like earth mothers. These are the little earth mothers holding this space and connecting us and doing that protection from a place of love. Because I think what the powers that be most want is for us to act out in anger and hate and rage. And I don't think that's the right place to be from. I think it's that the people who are doing this or somebody's kids, and they've become misguided. They've left the path, right? They're on the wrong path. And so we need to have like this much larger system of love to address it. So I brought the mothers to sort of watch out, and I was thinking about leaving them, but I think I'm going to take them with me so that they can be with me on other engagements. But I brought, as a mom, we have a whole box corner, and this is called Mousetrap. So I feel like we're about to be put in the Mousetrap game. Like that is the goal, that they want us in the Mousetrap game, and that really that these vaccine passports are the unlocked key to get us in the game. That's the cheese. They want us just to have everyone want to go back to normal so bad that they'll get the vaccine passport, and then they're in the game. And so we have to resist the game, the Mousetrap. And so often I do like little Bernie things, but I thought given all of the surveillance cameras, setting things on fire would not be so great outside of Wharton. So I brought this black fabric. And so this is sort of the transmutational fabric, so to speak. And I'm going to sort of cover over this Mousetrap box. I'm going to leave it here for them. And then I'm going to put the moms on here for a bit. So we've got, here, I'll just show you my little setup. So we've got it covered up. And then I've got a thing to read. So I'm going to read this to you. This is a revocation of consent. February 21st, 2021. Dear Wharton Business School staff, students, and alumni, you are hereby put on notice by the mothers of the world that we revoke any and all given or implied consent that would allow our children, our families, and our communities to be used as raw material in any local, national, or global social impact agenda. They called themselves social impact investors. Your intentions to subject vulnerable communities to digital surveillance in the name of social entrepreneurship goes against the spirit of right relationship. Your quest to blockchain and financialize human life and natural life on this planet in pursuit of ESG, environmental social governance, profit-taking will not advance because we refuse this future. We rebuke your plans to gamify our lives with tools of disruptive innovation and data analytics. You play at being God but you are not gods, merely misguided children who have lost their way. And thus, with love in our hearts, we are here to throw a wrench in the gears of the global prison planet delusions you harbor. The legacy of ENIAC, which is the first programmable computer, which is 3 blocks from here, will be stopped by the love in the heart of mothers. Life is not a game. Our souls will never be shoehorned onto your data dashboards, even as you push wearable technology, biosensors, and nanorobotics to try to capture them. We will elude you. Misery is not a business plan, and this offering is meant to transmute your hubris to humility, your avarice to solidarity. Love prevails. So I've got this letter to them, which I'm going to leave here. I'm going to take the mothers out of the heart box and the child. Can't really see what I'm doing here all that great, but let me, I don't really have a good pot. I'm taking them out, okay? They're coming out. So now we've got the heart box, okay? I'm putting the heart box on this game, and I'm going to put the letter in there. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm putting it in there. And then I've got some hearts, some felt hearts. I'm putting the hearts on here. So we're doing this from a loving place. Misguided people who pretend to be gods, you're not gods. Your mothers are telling you you're not gods. So I've got the hearts, and then I have a wrench, and I have these gears. So in the gears of their evil machination plans, I'm putting the wrench in here. And then I actually have a rock that I got last week in Utah, which is where the Huntsmans are from. So I'm going to weight it all down with this rock of intention. And then I will, let's see, I'll just put a little bit of this sage on here. Just it's all done. And there. So that'll be sort of our little prayer. So I don't know if you can see that, but that's generally what we've got going on the mousetrap. So that is my contribution in the belly of the beast, the home of ENIAC and Wharton, innovative, disruptive financial intentions that will not work because of love. So I'm going to sign off because my phone is dying with the cold, and I will check back in with you guys shortly. I love you all.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Thank you so just gorgeous. What joy. I absolutely love that.
I just love how she holds such extreme information with such naturalness and motherly humour.
So anybody out there who's not following Alison's work at all, and she's often takes herself out onto the streets and shares her knowledge in this way with ceremony, and it's really beautiful. And she's also, if you want to follow her work, I mean, on Facebook she's very rich, and wrenchingthegears.com. And Alison has written a beautiful article in our current edition called Tim Silla, Strong Medicine for a Technologic Age. And I'd recommend reading that as well. So yeah, thank you, Alison. And hopefully we might see Alison later when she gets home. And our next guest and woman, it was introduced to me when I first made contact with Alison, and she told me about Dipti Dat and her work. And Dipti is a mother across seas on Indian soil, from Indian and Canadian heritage. And she is by day producer, director in India's film industry, but again has found herself as somebody speaking out about the current state of affairs. And recently, Dipti's also written in our current edition, and recently we did an interview as she spoke about the the farmers' protest that's happening now. I think they're on day maybe 89 or something in India, and it's the largest protest ever in human history. And if you haven't heard about it, you have to ask why. Why haven't you heard about it? And yeah, please listen to that interview and go to Dipti's blog, where she shared an article that will really help you connect the dots on that. And yeah, so Dipti, I want to invite you in. If you unmute your mic, it's possible we won't be able to see Dipti tonight. She did warn me that we might not be able to see her.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Eva. Thanks, Isabella and Ava. And yeah, Alison, such a joy. Alison, such a joy. And she did something so right. So right on. You know, there are, I'm just jumping straight into it because it was so powerful what she did. It's so powerful what she does. You know, I have a friend from Guatemala. I've known her years and years and years in LA, and she had gifted me, I mean, I think it's been about 25, 27 years now, and a little bamboo box, like the size of my thumb maybe, right? And it's a little tiny box that you open, and inside are these very tiny, just like Alison's, homemade dolls that are made from leftover threads and leftover things that you might have around your house that are precious to you, you don't want to throw away. And these dolls are all made from this and kept in this little tiny bamboo box, and they're called worry dolls. So what we're supposed to do with them is, at night, if you're really bothered and vexed and, you know, troubled by issues and thoughts or whatever it is, the troubles that chase you, you take these little tiny dolls at night before you go to sleep. You take them out of your bamboo, this little tiny bamboo box, and you tell the dolls your worries, you tell the dolls your troubles and what is happening and what you need resolved and what you need help with. And then you put them under your pillow. And by the morning, you have your solutions. By the morning, the worries are gone. By the morning, it's been solved. This is how these worry dolls work. So I say it at every turn, you know, Alison's work is so, wow, it's so meticulous, and it's so strong in its, you know, veracity, and you can't touch her work. It's incredible where she's gone with it. And yet, for me, the power of Alison is that someone at her caliber of writing and research and engaging these storylines understands the power of burning sage at Wharton, you know, and understands what writing a letter and putting them in with mother dolls mean, and how strong that is, how powerful that is. So that's very valuable for me, because this is also, I mean, it's the traditions I come from as well. It's all the traditions I come from as well, where I think it was said best in by my friend Amandeep, who writes about Punjab, which is where a lot of the farmers are from, who are gathered in Delhi right now. And it's a concept that's called, in Punjabi, the concept is called Miri Piri. The word is Miri Piri. And that means spiritual and temporal. That we live in this embodiment as strongly in the spirit world as we do in the temporal world. And both each are to be in balance and equal in priority in order for us to most effectively navigate this flux. So the spiritual and the temporal, this is what for me I feel has, as I've seen around our worlds, gone off balance. This is what's this new religious cult we have in our planet. And I've spoken about this a little bit before, where it operates just like any other cult. It has dogmas, it has fundamentalists, it's extreme, it's non-inclusive, and it can't be questioned. It insists on belief. Scientism, this cult of scientism, which only addresses the temporal. It doesn't touch on the spiritual. And that's what's out of balance. That's what's out of balance. Science is good. Science is great. What we practice here that I know as the Sanatan Dharma is observation-based conclusions, which is what science is. And I think we've forgotten that, giving it over to scientism. So please forgive me for not having the camera on. Yes, there's a glitch and the quirk with my Wi-Fi. If I put both on, I may lose one or the other. So I just felt the sound is, I told Isabella earlier, the sound is what we could go with. And this has been the outcome of 2 nights ago. We had an incredible storm here, which was the most unusual in February in Goa. I'm in Goa, in India, on the western coast. Tropical, tropical lands. And we had just a storm out of the blue, howling winds and thunder and lightning. And we actually had what we call here aula. I don't know what, hail. I think you all call it hail in English, or like small frozen balls with the rain was frozen. And the lady who comes to work with us, our housekeepers from the village as well, Philomena, she came in the morning and said, this is happening because God is not liking what's going on. And she's been in the village years and years, born and brought up here. I think she's 3rd generation in this village where we live. And just simple, straight, direct she is. And I think she has great wisdom. I think she has great wisdom in the way she came in and said that straight away. She said, God is not liking what's happening, and this is what's going on. This is how she's going to interpret it, whatever it was that went on 2 nights ago. I tend not to believe it was just a freak tropical storm or unseasonal weather, as it were. I tend not to believe that. I tend not to believe that's what's happening in Texas either. I tend not to believe that a lot of the events we may see now will be yet another phase of, as Alison was describing, these children gone awry and run amok and not lost their ways, basically, lost their ways. These are beings and entities who have just lost their ways, and so greed and avarice and the Wetiko virus has taken over their minds, and they are operating in the way they are. And this is all to do with the temporal world. And in the spiritual world, I have to say, I have such grand and incredible and powerful hope in these 1 million or so of our annadatas who are gathered around laying siege in a peaceful protest to all the boundary approaches into the city-state of Delhi. I have such incredible hope. I have so much faith in these people and what they're doing, and their grounded, solid knowledge and commitment to right action and moral courage. And I think we can all, each one of us, draw so much from them. I think anybody, anywhere, who rises from the authenticity of their moral courage is doing so for all of us. That personal evolution that occurs where, you know, you just draw that line on the sand and you can't take it anymore, and you just stand up. You stand up and you rise and you face what you fear and you say, no, this will not stand. It will not stand. That moral courage is the most freeing, the most high, and I think the evolution of us as a species, the evolution of our consciousness. And I think that's where we're all going. I think that's why the events we're experiencing in these times for us are as extreme as they are. It's pushing us to the evolution of our consciousness, to the evolution of our species. So I'm happy to answer, speak if anyone would like. I don't know how we're doing this, Isabella, if there's time, or how you'd like to go, or I can also just wind up here.
Well, definitely, if somebody has a question, that's welcome.
Yeah, happy to answer and speak. I just actually finished writing the third in a series of articles about the farmers' protest. The first one, the one that we did the talk with about Isabella, which was just about all, you know, friends from outside India asking what's happening, what does it mean, what's going on, and answering those questions. The second one is actually Corey Morningstar, who's written about the advent of, you know, a lot of celebrity presence that came into the Greta and Rihanna and all of this, and what that could mean. And my third one that I've just finished writing and hopefully should upload in the next few hours is about what did happen because of that and what we're seeing roll out now. So that's something coming up. And yeah, I'm happy to.
We have a question here on the chat from Jay, which says, Deepti, what news source do you
recommend for the protests? So Trolley Times is a newsletter that's being published out of the Tikri border site. It's my friend Navkiran Nath, who was introduced to me by another friend, author Amandeep Sandhu. She's an activist. Both her parents are union leaders. She's been there from day one. She's a dentist. She's studied film, and she is part of the co-founders of this newsletter that's called Trolley Times, which has now become the main resource for information out of the borders, out of the encampment sites, the protest encampment sites. And it's published in Punjabi, in Hindi, and in English. So overall information, and they're on all the platforms. They're on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and they have a website as well. So it's called, let me just write it out there. It's called Trolley Times.
Yeah, I think Jay's found it there.
Yeah. So that, oh yeah, there you go. That's exactly right.
And it's,
So
I'd really recommend that reading Deepti's articles, because certainly when this all kicked off, it was very difficult to follow it, because there wasn't a lot in English, and it wasn't being covered very much.
yeah.
And Deepti's done a lot of work to just draw a lot of the information together, and there's so many other links that you can connect to there, Jay.
Yeah. And I think at this point, I just want to say also, it's just really important to watch this, you know, for all of us to keep an eye on it. In fact, I'm asking everyone here, keep an eye and a thought and a prayer to these people. They're you know, they're the last of the innocents. They're the last of the innocents, you know, of really pure hearts and the alignment of intent, thoughts, words, action. These are the last of these people that in the world who live in this way. They don't even know any different than this. And I think this is something so important to preserve amongst us, to keep this line and this culture and this way of being alive and vibrant, you know, and not for it to become a zoological culture like the Sentinels have in the Andaman Islands. They shouldn't be relegated to a quirk somewhere in the back of beyond. So yeah, something really important to do is to keep an eye on them, because yes, there is a heavy attack on now. It's a heavy attack. Corey was very right with the advent of you know, the Greta Thunberg and the team that is behind her. I don't want to say her because she's a child, but the Greta Thunberg team that's behind her and manages that public persona, Rihanna, so many others now joined in the game. And hopefully you'll see this article that I put out on Civilianaire in the next few hours. There's been a huge revelation around it also, just as we all suspected and knew all along, those of us who would have taken the time to delve into this. You know, the 3 farm laws against which all these protests have arisen, Modi was pushed by the WEF. As of 2008, they've been trying to get into India. From 96, from the 60s, they've been trying to get into India and take over the agriculture, and they haven't been able to. It's literally here, we're the last place left. It's the last place left. It's the last bastion of wilderness and undomesticated populations, if you will. When you see all the rest of Southeast Asia, Thailand, Philippines, the Koreas, North and South, anywhere you really, Vietnam, everywhere, Laos, everywhere you look, you see it's been modernized. It's become, you know, it has a very different, it's part of the progressive Western modern culture. India is the last place left. And for that reason alone, it's so important that we protect this.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an important question to reflect on, that, you know, the farmers of India have taken to the streets in the millions, and they're willing to stay till they die. That they know that this is about life, that they need to protect life, and they're not going home. They're there for the long haul.
Yes.
And we need to listen to these farmers, what they know. Yeah, and also the piece on. I really encourage everyone, if you're not aware and have not followed Corey's work on the manufacturing of Greta Thunberg. It's the first article in that series is in the magazine, but there are 2 volumes she's written on that, on the manufacturing of Greta, and that's 14 articles, and it's all evidenced, and it really does help connect the dots to understand what's at play here. And then if you want to go to Deepti's site, and you'll get to see how that started to play out in India. It's really important for us all, because obviously the green movement, well, certainly for me myself, is something that I have identified with and very much felt a part of for many years, in a very joyful way, because the movement is full of good people that care deeply about the earth and genuinely want to find different ways to live on the earth in a truly sustainable way. And unfortunately, we have to. I feel if we're going to move forward and truly protect our earth, we have to be willing to see that movement, we have been betrayed within that, and that we have to separate ourselves out and reclaim ourselves and reclaim our sacred hearts and our creativity, and be willing to stand together outside the narrative that we've become accustomed and identified with. So both Deepti's work and Corey's is really helpful to understanding and seeing more clearly there. And thank you, Deepti, so much.
Thank you everyone.
Lovely to hear your voice, and miss seeing your face.
Yes, I wish I yeah, it's just that quirk of Goa village life.
Please do listen to the interview I did with.
Yes, I'm going to keep recently.
This. It's on Ava's YouTube channel. And
I'm going to stay around, but I'm going to mute myself. And
yeah, and it's very late.
Yes, but that's fine. I'm up late at night. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you.
So our next guest is a woman who is and has been one of my favourite musicians and artists as an adult, and has accompanied my adult journey, really. And Carolyn's music accompanied the birth of my first child, and she lives here in Devon in the wilds of Dartmoor, and she really lives the life of nestled in the ancient land, and she dreams with the land and the ancestors, and she paints and she writes and she sings, and she brings the richness of what we all are standing to protect, which is our right to live close to this land. So with gratitude for your presence today, Carolyn, I pass us over if you unmute yourself.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. I'm going to share a song to start with. For this Call of the Mothers, I'm going to share a song called Come to Mama and it's about Beron. And I brought this representation of Beron to show you this bear mother. You can see her there, carved from wood, and she has all these ancient bones hung around her waist. And in fact, she's carrying 40,000 years of time in those bones. And I'll start with this song for you. Come to Mama. Spill your tears into the rivers, but bring them here to where I dwell. I'll protect the center of your anguish and watch until your terror is still. Your heart beats softened by my whisper, your breathing wrapped inside my own. My haunting dance enfolds you, daughter. You must find this threshold quite alone. You must find this threshold quite alone. Come to Mama, Baron's daughter. Come to Mama, come to Baron. Hand to paw, belly to belly, finger to claw, and bone to bone. Give you this unfettered spirit, for it is free and surely yours. I give you this ferocious courage, left for you by those who came before. So lean into the steadfast darkness, so prowl unsettled by this realm. My haunting dance enfolds you, daughter. You must cross this threshold quite alone. You must cross this threshold quite alone. Come to Mama, Baron's daughter. Come to Mama, come to Baron. Hand to paw and belly to belly, finger to claw and bone to bone. Give you this primordial memory, that long time ago belonged to you. I give you powerful intuition, for once you knew to be true. So pace the night in search of shadow, so rest within this silent storm. My haunting dance enfolds you, daughter. You'll find your dreaming when I'm done. You'll find your dreaming when I'm done. Come to Mama, Baron's daughter. Come to Mama, come to Baron. Hand to paw and belly to belly, finger to claw and bone to bone. So I have another song to offer you this evening, but before I sing that, I want to share some words. And these are words that I wrote before the winter when I was working in the completion of a project about the Proto-Celtic ancient mother tongue, the Bronze Age language that was spoken through Central Europe, North and Western Europe, and into these islands 4,000 years ago. And this is an important language because it's a remembered bone language. And in its sense, I find it very revolutionary because it's a language that can become absorbed by ourselves and taken into our own bones and used to express the ideas and the spiritual expressions and the yearnings and the new visions and dreams that we have and that we're living with as we move forward through these extraordinary times. So I just want to read one paragraph because it expresses for me why I love this language, why I feel it's important for us to be able to express ourselves in deeply ancient ways. And then I'm going to sing a song in that language. And why is this ancestral language significant or even relevant to us in our now existing world? Because language is part of identity. And when we identify with something that fits our deep sense of ourselves and our place in the world, then we grow in strength and clarity, trust and confidence. Because this ancient mother tongue offers us a new way of describing our sacred relationship with the soul of our world. It presents us with an untamed channel of communication that is not hemmed in by contemporary cultural parameters or the accumulated burdens of history and politics that weigh down modern language. When we use ancient language to express our deepest, truest, most raw relationship with a wild place, a landscape, a piece of the earth, then we begin to recognize and to unravel our intangible yearning for home and to connect with our own indigeneity. We feel that we belong. When we know that we belong, we also know how to celebrate and honor the natural world of which we are a part, and we come to understand more profoundly our responsibilities towards it. When we realize the truth and magnitude of those responsibilities, we know we must work together to meet them. When we all meet our responsibilities as human people indigenous to this earth, then we stand some chance of soothing and mending, healing and protecting what we as a species have broken. So yes, I do seem to be suggesting that singing and praying in the Proto-Celtic language can, in some small way, contribute to the vast global movement of hopeful and courageous human people who are committed and determined to preserve the precious integrity of life on this planet. So to complete my offering this evening to you, I'm going to sing a song called Sago and Snijo, which means the blanket in the braid. I'll sing it in the mother tongue and then I'll sing it in the English. And before I do so, just to say thank you. Thank you, Isabella, for gathering everyone this evening. Thank you for enabling me to be part of this beautiful circle. Kamano ni sweatito ni sandewe snate jabreto sago and snijo sago and snijo. Come on, oh, sago and snijo. Come on, oh, sago and snijo. Come on, oh, kwakwo. Come on, oh, kwakwo. Kamano grenjo soito samana soito nata soito kwakwo witsu kwakwo witsu. Come on, oh, sago and snijo. Come on, oh, sago and snijo. Come on, oh, kwakwo witsu. Come on, oh, kwakwo witsu. We remember all that we have spun, all that we have woven, path of needle to the cloth, the blanket and the braid, the blanket and the braid. We remember the blanket and the braid. We remember the blanket and the braid. We remember all our wisdom. We remember all our wisdom. We remember the magic of our bundles, the magic of our circles, the magic of our songs, all our wisdom, all our wisdom. We remember the blanket and the braid. We remember the blanket and the braid. We remember all our wisdom. We remember all our wisdom. Come on, oh, kwakwo witsu. Come on, oh, kwakwo witsu. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you for ending the fire that sings the memory and ignites the memory. So our next mother woman tonight to share her heart with us is Julianne Romanello, and she comes to us from Tulsa in the US. And she is a mother of 4, and I got to see one of those earlier. Yeah, nice. And yeah, Julianne was a teacher at the university at Tulsa, and has, from witnessing what happened there in was April of 2019, so really not very long ago, has found herself becoming quite an expert in the field of techno-fascism and the reality of what is being actioned by the corporate and the elites in our schools and with our children and in the health system. So today, Julianne is going to share from her mother's heart an opportunity. We're going to do an interview soon, so you'll get to hear a lot from Julianne in that setting. But today she's going to share as a mother how this has all landed with her and how it's impacting her and how it's impacting mothers. So yeah, welcome, Julianne. If you unmute yourself, we'll be able to hear you.
Okay, so I was saying that I find myself as here. It's a little disorienting because I feel so new to the awakening. I feel new to the life of an activist, and I think Claire was saying earlier before we started that she doesn't really feel like an activist and never thought she would be, and I find myself in the same place. I don't know a good word for this, and maybe for what I'm doing, for what we're doing as mothers, as women who are putting ourselves on the line professionally and publicly to try to defend life. I wish we had a word for it, and maybe in one of those ancient languages we'll find a word. But so I so I'm overwhelmed by all of this, and I feel like it is not a comfortable place for me to be in. I have never actually felt at home with the earth. And it sounds so silly, but I have a brown thumb. I don't exactly like to sweat. I prefer to have conversations with people about old books. And so during this time when we so desperately need to be rooted, I find myself sort of spinning in the air and grasping for something to hold on to, because all of the ideas that I've cherished, that I feel have come sort of in a detached way from the air, and I'm an Aquarius. uh, I'm really having to question all of those, and so I just bring that to you all as friends, as people who understand the suffering that we're going through right now. I just to say that it is very disorienting um, and it's scary to me. It's scary to me to try to find that rootedness, but we have to do it. And I think that part of our struggle is really to embrace the unknown and the uncertainty without trying to impose a system on it. So I have a couple of things that I wrote down because it makes me feel more tied to reality to write. But so I'll read a little bit about this, and then I want to make a few statements about, some of the practical things that we're seeing going on. So I wanted to share with you that I had a very dramatic realization of the evil that we're facing. It felt like a vision. It felt like an activation. I heard people at the university talking about children, about people in our community as commodities. They didn't use that language in particular, but they were talking about education, which I think is a form of conversion to the good. It is a soul craft. It's a turning toward things that are much bigger than ourselves. They were talking about it in very technical terms, and it was so repulsive to me that immediately I felt like just standing up and yelling, and I was so shocked that no one else was. So thinking about that situation, how it happened, I think that and it sounds silly to me to say this out loud, but I think that I really had a vision of a struggle that between good and evil that we're facing, and I'm trying to come to terms with that for myself and for my family and for anyone else who will listen. And I'm shameless. I'm the person that you run from in a party because I talk to everyone about it because it is so serious. So I'll just read this. Never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that I'd be here in front of a laptop screen and with a speaker in my ear, offering my reflections on a worldwide existential crisis. The crisis we are facing is, I believe, a spiritual war, an utterly serious contest between good and evil. To the victor of this struggle will go the prize that is of incalculable worth, the very souls of our children, those living today and those yet to be born. It is with the burden of this knowledge that I meet with you today, and in the hopes that by joining with other women who have been inspired to take up arms in this most serious battle, we might protect the souls and freedom and humanity of our children. What I try to do, I was not on social media. I don't like technology at all. What I try to do, though, is help explain to people what some of the language that social engineers and technocrats, what some of their language means. I noticed these patterns of terms that Allison talks about in her blog and that you'll see over and over in corporate white papers and in press releases. And it maybe because I hadn't used social media, maybe that was one reason that they stood out to me. But you just kept, it's actually a constriction of language. So Carolyn's remarks were so beautiful because language does open us up to different levels of reality and brings us to closer experiences with what is actually real. And you have to have a richness of language. You have to have an authenticity of language. Um, you have to have many different terms for the same phenomenon so that you can explore it from the multitude of perspectives that we as human beings have. And I always think of St. Thomas Aquinas, who was once reflecting on why we have different races of people in the world, and his answer was, well, there is no single race or type of human being would be adequate to reflect the beauty and truth of God. And I think that is absolutely true. We need we need many perspectives, and language helps us to have that. So um, so I started to notice these repetitions and constrictions in language, and what I try to do is explain what these nice sounding words really mean. Things like community engagement, things like sustainability, things like equity, things that we would all probably love to see more of if uh, if they meant what we interpret them to mean. But these wayward children, these greedy, suffering children that Allison mentions that you all have no doubt talked about, they have inverted the meaning of these terms, and they're using language to deceive rather than to illuminate. So I try to explain that, and I hope that in some way my effort has um, has some fruits. But so that's what I try to do on social media, and I work a lot locally. Um, I am, like I said, I'm shameless about meeting with people who might see things as I've seen them. The virtue of living in a small city, I mean, we have about, I don't know, 600,000 people, is that, you know, you can identify who's bringing this necromancy to our community. And a lot of people are afraid to name names. And I started doing it, and I haven't stopped. And I think that gives a voice to people who see these things. And if I can be a voice for others, then I'll consider myself living well to the best of my ability. Um, that's what I try to do as an activist. As a mother, I thought I'd just offer a few reflections. I cannot imagine my kids or anyone else's kids as a commodity to a workforce. I cannot imagine treating a child as a tool to be rewired, to be gritty, to be resilient, to be all of these um, overused, terrible, vapid terms, you know, because human beings are more complex than that, and we are unique. And I think that is the greatest crime you could commit, is to turn another person into a tool. So when I started to understand what was happening with finance, with technology, with this social engineering agenda, which I think is demonic, I look at my kids and I think, there is absolutely no way we can let this happen to them. And every day I'm shocked watching people around me um, in Oklahoma. I mean, we're not in a coastal city. It's a strange place to have such conformity and such uh, deference to authority and lack of inquiry. It's just absolutely shocking, and I don't know. It just pains me so much that's why I just don't care if, you know, if the Instacart driver thinks I'm silly for talking about the New World Order. So as I reflect on the last couple of years and what it means and where I am at right now, I think uh, that it has been really a lesson in suffering. And again, I'm going to call it my books, and I noticed they're all like male authors, but I have Rousseau's The Emile, which has been criticized a lot, especially by feminists. I taught the book several years ago, and I actually thought that Rousseau, he gives a picture of men and women. I thought he gave a beautiful description of women as um, as having to suffer. And I think there is, you know, the ancient Greeks thought that we gained wisdom by suffering. And in Carolyn's songs, it sounds like this suffering brings us closer to the things that we need to connect with, whether it's God or the earth or each other or our families. Uh, so I think that that's the lesson that I've learned, uh, and it's really been something that has been a part of my life story as I've looked back. So when I became a mother, I actually had a very difficult time making the transition. It turned my world upside down. Um, I had a bout of severe depression, and my first child was a difficult child. Um, Beautiful, lovely, we all know that, but a lot of work, and I felt sort of lost. I thought that I would be able to have a balance of work and life, as we often hear. I mean, that's in all of the white papers. We need to have a balance of work and life. And I found that I could not do that. It simply wasn't. It wasn't going to happen. And as I made friends and had more kids and started to figure out how it was, then I sort of felt like part of my role as a friend to other mothers was to be honest about how difficult it is to have someone depend on you and to have to change yourself um, and your expectations for your life to love another. So I had to give up on the idea of a work life balance. And I discovered that my idea of what balance looked like, that was actually fundamentally flawed. I needed a new concept of balance. And that is to understand that our existential struggle, our struggle for life, and to articulate the questions of our existence that unite us to each other. Um, the balance is learning that we are never going to arrive at a final uh, point of equilibrium. We are never going to arrive. No child arrives at some magical point when you say his or her life is complete. As a mother, you have to adapt to so many different stages of life. And for me, that was a very powerful insight to recognize that, I was always trying to, with my first really, I was trying to get to a point of equilibrium where he could exist and I could exist in a nice, tidy order. And I had to let go of that idea and to recognize that we have to be radically open to what life, what reality throws at us. So that's what I think is really, I think there's something encountering this dark force that we're dealing with. I think that's part of the answer lies in our willingness to suffer and to let go of any kind of idea about organizing, categorizing, labeling, anything that that collapses that existential struggle, that struggle for life. We have to learn to be very open and comfortable with the tension. So, but we can't give up on truth either, right? So we have to be comfortable with flux, but realize that there is a certain truth. And I'll wrap this up. I know I'm probably short on time, but here's another little book that, on population. Um, the third essay by Frederick Osborne in here, it was written in 1960. It talks about population control, and it's the longest essay in this book. And as I was reading it a while ago, I came across Osborne's, he has a little discussion about public health. And he says, public health is also a natural framework on which to build an awareness of the advantages of smaller families. There is no form of human society in which mothers do not care about the welfare of their children. Higher ideals of childcare, of sanitation and nutrition are among the first requirements of a campaign of public health. As these ideals are generally accepted, the large family becomes increasingly a recognizable handicap, while at the same time more of the children survive and large families are no longer necessary for the continuation of the family line. And it goes on to say that the public health approach brings the question of family size directly to the masses. And even illiterate women can learn to understand that too many children limit her ability to care for any of them properly. So this was, I think, this was shocking to me and a great find, because we can see here that the stable point, our social engineers are trying to find they're systematic thinkers, and they want to pigeonhole things, and they have to have they want to apply a mathematical precision to the project of engineering society. And what is the one constant? It's a mother's desire to care for her children. The one constant throughout all cultures is the mother's desire to care for her children, not the father's, but the mother's. And so you have social engineers who take that constant and they twist it by running public health campaigns that say you have to do this or that. And they try to undermine our sense of understanding, of knowing our child, of knowing ourselves, and they manufacture an entire death-loving system off of that. So the antidote to that, I think, is to trust our gut, to trust ourselves and our instincts, and part of my instinct about it is that we have to be willing to suffer and give up on the idea of tidy things, of nice things, and understand that this is more of a process, and we have to simply be open to it. And if we can exhibit that openness in our lives, like that should be a model for creating some kind of a new system. So one of the things that I'm going to try to do, it actually scares me because my house is a mess. My bathrooms are disgusting. I can't take care of silly things. My driver's license has been expired for a long time. But how do we open ourselves in love to others? And what Tony and I have decided to do is, we're going to start just having a regular soup supper, and we're going to open it to everyone. I'm even going to post it on Facebook, not worried about if mean people are going to come. We're just going to be radically and totally open to suffering, to the insights that others can give us. And I don't know if that will help, but I think, what can we do? We can't fight them on their terms. We have to fight on our own. And the opposite of the culture of death that we're seeing is to embrace it all. So anyway, for what it's worth, that's what we're dealing with here. And I hope I didn't talk too long.
Julianne, oh, so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your heart. Your raw mother's heart, and it's something that I really see in you when I've taken, listened to your interview with Jason. That's what I see. I see your raw woman and mother's heart, and all that feeling that you hold. Thank you.
Thank you.
Julianne, thank you so much, because I just ditto with what Isabella was saying, but the level of the information that you are daring to bring and everything that you shared with us on a personal level, I just feel so deeply touched. And listening to you, I've just got this incredible warmth and real deep love and awakening within me, on a level I can't quite articulate, but I think it's because there are not so many people who are aware of the level of what we're dealing with, and for whatever different reasons are unaware of just how insidious this is. And the fact that you are there with your husband in such difficult times and with all your children, and you're still speaking out with such courage. Thank you so much. It was really stunning. Thank you.
I wanted to say that it has been so moving to see how every country in the world is dealing with this at the same time. And I don't know how you can look at what's going on, say, in Australia, or I think of the UK, what's going on, with the lockdowns in Ireland, or, I mean, I deal primarily with the English speaking countries, but I'll get notes from people from Belgium. I have several people in Belgium who they'll send notes and they're afraid to write something publicly, but I don't know how people can see this and real and not act, when you think there are people who are trapped in Australia. Like, these are our brothers and sisters, and we don't want all of these cultures to be collapsed into one homogenous blob.
Yeah.
So I think it has been so beautiful to see these different traditions, different ways of understanding the world, and it frightens me, and it is so painful to think that those we're they are threatened, and I want to be optimistic about it, but I just feel like if I could go and get people, out, we could stop some of this. And I don't know, I just, again, saying with suffering, I know I look silly probably, but it is so hard, I think, to look at this like threat to different peoples. So for those of you who are international, geez, and it's awful, but beautiful too. So thanks for letting me get that off my heart.
Fantastic. Bringing real truth.
Yes, I feel we are being called to live in the unknown with a willingness to see what's unbelievable on some level. I feel like I meet the part in my psyche that's like, I can't believe this is really happening, and yet needing to kind of be present and live this moment and make choices and listen and follow and feel the way through, and that sense of being in the unknown and not knowing what is possible, but that sense of like, we have to hold this life as sacred in our hands, and we need to step forward and keep holding this bundle. And yeah, Thank you. Wish we could pop into your soup.
I'm hugging you.
Oh, thank you, Julia.
I hope a lot more soup kitchens come out of this as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Very great.
So our next guest and woman and mother today is a woman that I just came across very recently, Katana, and she's in New Zealand. And a friend shared this clip that many of you probably have seen. And I don't actually know the story, and maybe we will hear the story from Katana, I don't know today, but this moment where she was standing with her Maori sisters, and the words that came through, and they speak so directly to what we're facing at this time, and I shared that clip, Katana, and yeah, it ignited people's hearts. It really got a lot of attention and a lot of sharing, and so it spoke directly to people. And so yeah, I'm going to pass us over Katana in New Zealand. It's morning where she is, and if you unmute yourself, Katana will be able to hear you.
Hello. Oh, thank you so much for opening and creating this space. Is the volume okay? Can you hear me? Yeah. Wow. I just didn't quite know what I was diving into this morning, and I'm just so blown away today. Thank you, Sister Julianne, who just shared. I want to acknowledge what you shared in the beginning about feeling like a newbie, and hearing your voice and your wisdom. You may feel a newbie, but your spirit is so ancient, sister. And your wisdom that you're calling forth is so needed. So we're really holding you and loving you. And may we hold each other and love each other as we all share the unique gifts that we're here to bring for this time. I will share the story of Cry of the Mothers, but first I felt really called to mention to Carolyn that hearing your sharing your songs took me right to the feet of my ancestors at my ancestral altar. My grandmother on my mother's side is Scottish, and I don't know much about her lineage, but as soon as the Celtic words started coming through, the tears of remembrance started flowing, and I heard her calling me, and I went right to her feet and looked in her eyes and felt that maternal lineage thanking me for bringing it there, and you for bringing it forth, Isabella for holding this container. This is what we're being called to remember, this lineage that we were so disconnected from. And I want to share the story of Cry of the Mothers and how it came, because I feel it speaks to my personal feeling that all of this is actually perfectly aligned. All of it. Even the parts that twist our stomach, that rise us in fury, it's there to wake us up, to call us home. And may we, for me, and I know everyone shares different beliefs around it, so I in no way by sharing my perspective challenge or belittle anyone else's belief or opinion. I think it will take all of our perspectives to rise through this. But in Cry of the Mothers, it was actually a protest here in New Zealand many years ago, rising for our sovereignty in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was a corporate agenda to strip us of our sovereignty. And I heard the distinct calling. I was headed down to the march, and I heard the distinct calling to not go to the beginning of the march, but to park my car where the march would end. And I had my big sage bundle, and I was speaking on the phone to my spiritual teacher all the way there. And her perspective was that it is only the mind that confuses us in these times. And as you said, Juliet, it's our gut and our intuition that will guide us to the precise placement that we need to be. I have two beautiful golden labs, and they're going to probably bark in the journey of sharing this. So hopefully not too much. And so in that moment, I got down to the front line and had my sage and was smudging. And then I saw the thousands of activists moving towards us. There were a few of us there already. And two Wahine Maori sisters took place on either side of me. And everyone was taking turns sharing. And I felt, as I feel today, deep invocation of Source. And when I opened my mouth to sing those words, I had never heard them before. I had never spoken them before. I didn't know what was going to come through. And to witness, and in no doubt in my mind, those sisters beside me called that in. Even the police officer in front of me called that in. And to see the response from that cry for many movements, in Puerto Rico for an independence movement, for our medical freedom sisters, I hold no attachment now to how those words are being inspired for others. But I share the story of that because I know in these unprecedented, absolutely blinding times, our mind can get so wrapped up in how we're going to do this or why we've got to do this. Or as the first sister in Philadelphia shared, you know, that call to be angry and fight and be on the war path. And it was Sister Rose Pere, Dr. Rose Pere in New Zealand, Aotearoa, who just passed. I did an interview with her years ago, and she said they had a movement here, the Kohongoreo movement, where they brought back the Maori language. And she said, we didn't have to fight. When we stood in the truth of what we knew was right, those who opposed us just laid down. And that's what I feel coming. All we do is stand and rise, speak the truth. As you said, Juliet, that instinctive mother caring. Continue to share, but don't let our minds mislead us to think that this isn't all playing out so that we can finally reclaim our birthright to connect to our mother, our birthright to raise our children in community, our birthright to have spirit by our side. So with that, I'll share Cry of the Mothers, and Isabella had mentioned maybe we do it twice so that the second time, still with our muted mics for not, I'd love to hear all your voices, but we did a test run and it was a little bit, there's a lot going on. So I'd love to hear you in spirit with me the second time. I'll stand for this. Hey,
the cry of the mothers who know that this corporate greed has now got to go. This is the cry for your children whose futures are at stake. Which side of history will you participate? Hey, hey, and together. This is the cry of the mothers who know that this corporate greed has now got to go. This is the cry for your children whose futures are at stake. Which side of history will you participate? Hey, hey, thank you. I love you.
Thank you. Oh. Oh. Thank you so much. And so beautiful to meet sister across the waters, and just to have met you in that cliff, and then just to hear your words and your story, and how much our stories are woven, and our reclaiming is woven across this earth. Now we're standing together in our different lands. I would have loved to have heard each of you there. It was just incredible, so beautiful to sing. Yeah. So we're going to have a little break. It's an opportunity to visit the loo, make a cup of tea. So we'll have a 10-minute break and then come back. So we'll see you at 20, just after 22 past. Well, that's in time here. Look at your clocks. See you soon.